Good afternoon. It's David Celine and Chris Goley from Drive. And today we have special guest Brian Groff and Chelsea with us from Groff's Automotive in Colorado Springs, correct?
Yep.
Okay, I got all that part done now. So, um, you know, Brian has had a very successful 2020 year, and we wanted to bring him on the show to kind of talk about some of the successful actions because, Brian, if I get this right, you had one of your best years last year for your company.
It was absolutely 100%.
Okay, so despite the pandemic and everything going on, you were able to take your shop and take it to a whole new level and have your best year ever. So let's walk through some of the actions that happened last year, how you responded to COVID when it became an issue in your area, and what were your successful actions to get your shop to have its best year ever?
Well, just like we all do, the very beginning part of the new year, we set our goals and we write those goals down and we send them to our advisors there at Drive, and we try to hold ourselves to that goal through the year. Our goal was set before we knew anything about a disease that was going to ultimately change 2020's look, but we kind of hit the ground running. That goal that was set was a goal financially wise that was never set before. And it was a pretty substantial hike from 2019. It was going to be at least 20%, which we ultimately ended up with 23% gain from 2019. Once April hit and things started to shift and change, we did follow guidelines as far as our shutdown period in April was consolidated down to 3 days. We were open Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, closed Mondays and Fridays. We did that for 3 weeks. At the end of the third week doing that, even though I was taking all the calls and the appointments, we couldn't keep up. And I said, "This is stupid. Why are we shut down? Let's keep rolling. Let's keep going." Was able to keep the full staff. And once we got back on to 5 days a week again, it never took a breath. It never stopped. It never slowed down. Even to the point where we started to see a little bit of a decline as far as the cars on the roads, a lot of people working from home. I think a lot of people were finding out that they could work from home and actually consolidate an 8-hour day into like a 3-hour day. And they were using that time to actually get out on the road and go run the errands that they need to run or go to places that they needed to go. So it really didn't affect us. Or they were calling and saying, "Look, I'm not using the car. Let's get these things done. I've been holding off on." And we found out that it wasn't a financial situation, it was a time crunch situation. That kind of led to a whole new thing as far as the time crunch. And we had to make sure that we were able to work efficiently and get through the cars through the course of the day without a lot of these repairs running into the next day like they normally do.
Okay. So you set your goals out at the beginning of the year, you were on target, and then everything happens. It did change the environment, but you didn't let it affect you too much. How much adjusting did you have to do to your goals when all happened?
We really didn't have to adjust. I'll be honest with you. The biggest adjustment was on Chelsea's side with marketing and advertising. Chelsea found a gold mine in a younger demographic. We got too used to looking at our demographic as from 34 to 65 and a multi-family and multiple income family of 150, 170,000 plus, maybe 3-4 cars. Chelsea was able to tap into a different demographic with the younger generation that they themselves were still driving, obviously, and still needed to go to work and still needed that transportation. So the adjustments when we came back in full strength that last week in April was, honestly, it was a mindset we have April to make up. We still have to hit our goals and our targets no matter what. This isn't a setback. It isn't a situation where the world stubbed its toe and all of a sudden the success or failure of my business depends on a pandemic that I can't control. And that's what happens a lot in so many different businesses. If you're already lacking the goals, it takes a very small stub of the toe to blame your lack of success on what's going on around you, and you just have to look past that.
Very good out point on
You
there.
brought up a number of really you brought up a number of really important points in that, and I'd like to ask first about tell us about what you did, Chelsea, to open up this new demographic. What did you implement that wasn't being done before? Those kinds of things, as
Yeah.
far as the marketing goes.
So one of the first things is I did start Drops halfway through this year, started in June. So trying to play catch up, with everything that they already had going. There was an Instagram page, but it wasn't really getting used. So one of my main goals was to kind of get that back up and running, because I know that there's a running joke that kind of Facebook has been taken over by the older generation, and no one really is using it as much as they where it's now all about TikTok and Snapchat and Instagram. So kind of looking at all of those, we're not really, TikTok is a little too young for us right now. So Instagram is really the best bet. So getting that up and running, and then just bringing in the idea of the billboards. I feel like there's something that people don't really look at, or they say that they're not useful, but you're staring at them all day, every day on your commute, driving around town, you see the same one for several months. And when you have that problem, it goes in your head of, oh, who do I know? Oh, I drive by it every day. There's Ross. And so I think that really helped too. So we're looking to this year to maybe do some billboards as well.
Okay, and right before the
Great.
show, you were talking, you did the billboards, but you also talked about Iheart Radio, that you started doing radio campaigns.
So Brian was already doing a bunch of radio campaigns, anyways, with all of our local radio stations, but we implemented the OTT, which is to do the television with them too. So they air our commercials on the local television, and if you're watching free movies on demand and it's got the commercials, you'll see them. I actually saw our first one when I was doing the same thing. I sat down to watch a movie at home and I played it and I heard our commercial go off and I was like, no way, that's the coolest thing to actually see it come to life.
Well, one of the things that we're finding out, and it's not just our demographic or our city, it's all over the board. A lot of people are cutting the cords, and as soon as you start getting back to the streaming television, the Fire Stick, the Roku, things of that nature, that's where it's really starting to go. And as Schultz was saying, as we invested more money into over-the-top OTT digital marketing, it's kind of that balance where you have 75 to 25%, 75% are still connected to a cable. And now it becomes 50-50, and now it's 60-40, and we're starting to see that shift. And so you have to be able to maintain and change how you advertise and how you reach people.
That's a good point, because I know throughout the year, Chris and I talked a lot on our Facebook shows about the amount of marketing efforts that you had to increase in your business. And I think you guys are a great example of increasing your marketing, thinking outside the box, looking at new avenues, and to drive business in your shop. And it seems like it's paid off quite well for you.
Well, it has. And we both had talked to several advertising agencies that we're already implementing and working with. And what we were finding, the trend is there was a lot of advertisements going away from those outlets, be it TV and radio. And there was a lot of deals to be made. And when you can get in on that level, and gives you the opportunity to do things a little bit differently as everybody else is backing out of advertising, we're really not going to see that trend end anytime soon. As far as 2021, maybe midsummer we'll start things opening back up. But I can understand if you're a restaurant or a bar business, it's kind of hard to advertise with something that isn't open. But you also got to remember, no matter what happens, you still have to stay relevant regardless. And that's the biggest thing that Chelsea does, is to make sure that brand name, Drops Automotive, is mind awareness. And all the different platforms that you might see it takes three. You could have a friend or a family member tell you that when you tell them that the car is broke, take it to Drops. Well, automatically that might remember that radio commercial. They might remember that TV commercial. They might remember passing the billboard. But it usually takes three items for them to say, you know what, you're absolutely right. I've seen them. I know about them. I'll use them.
That's great. Now, Another another aspect of the whole picture for 2020, for a lot of shops, was getting the team to pull together, stay together, getting everybody on the same page, and keep going. And you mentioned earlier about you reduce your schedule for a little while and then realize you needed to just go right back to your normal business hours. And tell us about how your team responded, what you did with your team to keep them on the same page and keep them settled in. I know that in some areas, in some shops, there was a fair amount of concern people had about their own safety and so on. And how did you address that from a leadership point of view?
Well, we tried to separate everybody in the text. We tried to follow the guidelines.
Mhm.
First and foremost, I having a conversation with the entire crew. If anybody doesn't feel comfortable about being here and want to stay at home, I completely understand. We'll file unemployment, job attached. We'll see how this thing plays out. My crew is one of the best in the business. I give them the reins to make their personal decisions that is going to work best for them. So it's more or less them telling me what it is that they're comfortable doing and me implementing a plan after I know what I have to work with. And that was the biggest thing. And everybody was still on board. They needed to do what they needed to do to stay safe. I needed to be able to give the tools that they needed to make sure that if they wanted to wipe down a steering wheel, or if they wanted to, have seat covers or steering wheel covers, whatever it took that I needed to do to make sure that they were comfortable to do their work, that was the biggest thing. So there was a lot of changes that took place, but everybody stayed on board. Everybody stayed on track. We had 2 employees that there was a possibility that they might have it or contracted it. Those protocols were put into place. As far as them staying home, I needed to see a negative result, and I needed that in writing. And I needed to be able to share just those results with everybody, so it didn't seem like I was keeping anything from them or I was just hustling to get them back to work. And everybody understood that. As long as those results came back negative, everything was fine.
That's great.
And so now I'm going to switch gears because we've been talking a lot about last year and the pandemic. But as far as the shop, you've been in business for several years. Can you talk a little bit to us about life at the shop before Drive and then the process through Drive and how it is now?
Absolutely. 3rd generation. The business started with my grandfather in 1956. My father retired at the end of 2001, which therefore I bought the business. In 2011, I decided to open up a secondary shop on the west side of where we're at, probably about 10, 12 miles away. Worst decision I ever made. I wasn't prepared at all. I thought the strength of a business that has been in business, and that's in this small community as long as it had, could pretty much run itself with people that I had. So it wasn't until I closed that secondary shop that I realized I was taking so much from the main shop to feed that second shop. And it really depleted the funds, depleted the business, it depleted me. And that's when I matched up with Drive, a good friend of mine in another shop here, Steve Mills Racing. Says, hey, I want to bring you to the seminar that's coming into town. And I sat down and I said, hell, I can't even afford that. Why? And the theory sounds great, but I can't afford it. But I took the plunge anyways. Biggest thing about Drive and the success of the business, everybody knows the stats as far as what it takes to open up a shop, to be the first time, to be second generation. That percentage is quite a bit smaller. To continue on to be third, it is in the single digits as far as the success rate of a small business. I contribute the long-standing in a small community I've grown up in and still live in today. A lot of the business owners and families in this community I know well. But the jumping on board with Drive made me focus. The success of Drive given me the tools that I needed to re-implement and implement, period, and stay on task and get things done and do it in such a manner where it's profitable for a shop, profitable for the owner, me, and profitable for my employees, most important.
Great. So what's your day-to-day like these days?
Well, our hours are Monday through Friday, 8 to 6. We don't have a waiting room. We have a very beautiful facility, not only in the shop, but our waiting area in the back office where Chelsea and I work and, figure out what our next plan is with the advertising. But we like to have all of our customers there at the shop between 8 and 8:30 and drop it off. I have 2 service riders. They work very, very well in a small, comfortable, spacious area. The customers are on top of each other. I run the shuttle. That's probably my favorite job. When a customer needs a ride home or needs a ride to work, I take them. And our new customer base, as a matter of fact, we just looked at the stat. We are probably in the realm of 6 to 8 new customers a week.
That's great.
Our retention on a new customer with sales from start to finish, from the time they click on our name on Google to the point where they pick up the car and leave, is 98%. A lot of times I get in the vehicle to take them to work or home and they don't even know I'm the owner, which is great. They ask me how long I've been at Groff's, and I'm like, oh, I think since I was 12. So getting to know my customers is the biggest enjoyment that I have. But I'm a filler at the shop. Chelsea and I work very close together on the advertising and the direction of the success of the business and the growth of the business. I'm a mechanic. I step out there with the guys in the shop. If they have a problem on diagnostic or runnability, I'm there to lend a hand. I don't have my tools there. I'm in my garage at my house. This is the upstairs, and my garage is down below, and I tinker there. But the normal day and routine, for the most part, goes very smoothly. For as long as I've been with Drive and as much as I've been implementing everything that Drive tells me to do, there's no doubt we have hiccups and we stumble every once in a while, and we'd like to have that car done at 2 that didn't get done until 4, and the customer needed to be picked up at 3 that didn't get picked up until 4:30. These things you just can't avoid, but for the most part, the day goes very smooth, and at the end of the day, we feel really good, and our stats show it too.
Great.
Okay. And Chelsea, now you said you come on board in June.
Yes, I did.
So there's a point on this that I think that I wanted to talk about. You come on board in June, you're taking over social media and marketing, and you find some things that he already has in place, some things you want to add. But I want to talk about, your viewpoint of coming on board into the shop that is well organized and running, the owner has control over it. How did that affect you on coming in on board into the shop?
Honestly, I think it was probably one of the best circumstances I could kind of throw myself into. One of the best parts about working with Brian is I've actually known him since I was little. He's, been friends with my parents for quite some time, so we already, knew each other. I already knew, the shop, been taking my car there since, I first started driving. So being able to come in and have all these things already established and they're working successfully, only thing that I could really do is make them more successful, So being able to have that chance, of course, there's that thought in the back of your head, like, oh gosh, if I don't make this worse, then because, it's already really good right now. So being able to already have a lot of things already established, and he has all these relationships with, the news stations here and the radio stations here. So, people know Ross. And so already having that in place was really just able to help me kind of keep it going.
Okay. Well, we often tell shop owners, a well-organized business will attract better employees and people that want to stay with the business a long time. And it sounds like some of that is well established. You knew how it run before it came in, and it looked like you had a little bit of research to know that what you were walking into, and it sounds like it was an attraction point to the business. And not really a question here, but it's just kind of more of a statement for shop owners looking for employees. Being organized and having a well-run business makes a deciding factor for attracting and getting good employees to the business.
Well, 100% I agree. I don't know how many times, whether it's, other reps from stations that come to have meetings with us, or if it's customers, they walk in and they're like, wow, it's so clean in here. It smells good. It's not like a regular shop where, it's people do, they expect it to be dirty and smell like oil and gas and all that stuff. And when you walk in, it's a very pleasant surprise. And it's that first impression when people walk through the door, and it makes them want to come back.
Okay. And Brian, now just on that same topic right there, you got everything organized. How have you found that it helps you get the employees that you wish to have in your shop?
Well, my rules are pretty simple. We all like to use the words honesty and integrity, but my shop name is not ABC Automotive. It's my last name. It's Groff's Automotive. And that business name since 1956 has stood in a small community, a community that I went to school in, my kids went to school in, and I shop in. So they understand the importance of what that family name and what that business name means. Once we get on that level together and they understand that they're here to set a standard, not only for themselves and their workmanship and their craftsmanship, but they're also working for a staple in the community that stands behind their work. We don't have upset customers. I'm not saying that we don't make mistakes, but when mistakes are made and we're at fault, we do everything we can to rectify those and take care of them very quickly. I don't have irate customers. I think it takes a lot of pressure off of employees if you're working for a place that if a customer comes back with a concern, it may not have anything to do with the repair that was made. But if you work for a shop where the owner is in constant battle saying it's not my fault, it's not my fault, it's not my fault, well, that brings a lot of animosity, and pretty soon it runs down a name. Employees feel very comfortable working for a place that they know when they go out and they meet somebody new and they want to know a little bit about where they work and they say Groff's. They want to hear nothing but good things, saying that I know that place. It's been around a long time. They do good work. I've had my car there. I've known people that have taken the car there. You don't want to be out and about meeting new people and saying, well, this is where I work. It's like, oh my goodness, I've heard of that place and I don't know why you're there. So that makes it very comfortable, and that does attract the right amount of or the right employees that we want there representing our name.
That's a great point or a great outlook on how you run that and set that up with your employees. And that leads me to one other question. And you brought this up about Steve Mills referring you to Drive back in the years. But I also know you're very active in business development groups and networking groups and very active in your community. But my question is that Colorado Springs is a pretty decent sized town, but I know there's a group of shop owners there, and you're included in that and kind of lead and guide those shop owners now. And there's a group of them, and many of them are Drive clients. You have the same goals, the same, run your business the same ways. What does that do for business in your area?
I think it sets us apart from, we're 800,000 people in Colorado Springs. We probably have a shop base of about 25 to 2,700 different shops within that El Paso County area. What that does for us, when you can take a smaller group of 7 to 10 shops and basically be more on the elite side, being the Pikes Peak Napa Auto Care group, which Steve Mills is a part of that group, as well as Bola from Car Care. It really, as we give back to the community, is what we want to do within that smaller group. And it shows the community that we're not just there to put out our hand and collect the dollars for repair rendered, that we really do care about the people in the community. And I don't care if it's 800,000 or 800 people in a community. As long as you continuously show them that you're there to support them as they've been there to support you in small business, it'll always come back to you 10 times fold.
Great. Yeah, because I know, the group of shop owners you work with, it's in some cases they're your competition, but the other side, that doesn't bother you. It's almost like you guys have a viewpoint. There's enough customers in this town. We don't have to fight over the same customer, but we can work together and raise the bar for the industry.
That is correct. We don't look at ourselves as competing shops. They're not my competitors. They're my colleagues. If I can't get to a customer's problem, they need it right now, or maybe they're out of town and there's somebody else that I know that can handle it just as well as I could, I'm going to refer them to them. It's kind of, there's no doubt that there's shops that you look at as competing shops. if you want to go down that road of mirroring somebody else's business. And I think when you've got competing shops, that's exactly what they're trying to do. If somebody's labor rate is 125, you're going to be 124.99. You're competing with them, but the two shops are completely different. In our case, being a part of that group and being president now going on second year in a row, as things didn't go smooth on the 2020 side of things, it's really fun and exciting to see what shop owners do outside of working on cars. And you'll be surprised that the humane aspect of a human comes out when you get them out of their day-to-day routine and hustle and bustle of running a business, and how big their heart can be.
Yeah, and that just brings up, because I know going back to the community and you're talking about how big the heart is. Now, your group does something on a yearly basis. I don't know if it all took place last year, but during the holiday season, you guys purchase a large number of bicycles and give out to the community too, right?
Yeah, there's actually 3 different events that we do. We give a car away in the summertime, which we were not able to do because the venue did not happen this year. But a ton of turkeys. It's literally a ton of weight of turkeys and all the trimmings that go along with it to care and share. And then the bicycles, yeah, that looked a little bit different this year. We weren't able to actually get the bicycles and put them together and give them to the children. Unfortunately, it was we had to do it differently, in a monetary financial support that we would normally spend on bicycles. But the Bob Talamasi Christmas giveaway and the bicycles, that is a big thing, and certainly important to us, and a lot of fun to do. And seeing the look on the children's face, I remember getting my first bike at Christmas and waking up and looking under the tree and there's a bicycle. It's that exact same look. If I was a kid back then looking in the mirror when I was surprised, it's exactly what I see. So it's a good time.
Well, that's great to hear. Now we are coming up on our time today, and we want to thank both you and Chelsea for joining us today. You know, congratulations on all of your successes, the 3rd generation of the shop, and keeping it strong, keeping that name very prominent in your community, and actually having values that it stands behind. You know, congratulations on that, and well done, Chelsea, on, you know, with the marketing and everything that you did to help go through 2020 and make it your guys' best year. So congratulations, and we look forward to what you have in store for this year.
Yeah, and we're excited about doing it. I do want to just say one thing. The reason why, there's several reasons why I want Chelsea here on this, but you know, any shops out there that are listening, they really need to look into the investment. Be it start out small at 5 or 6% of your last year's revenue. It really needs to be about 8 or 9 right now as the competitiveness of the industry continues to grow. And on the vice versa, you've got a lot of shops that are actually starting to shut down, and these people got to know where their next outlet is, with all these shops shutting down too. Get somebody like Chelsea, because as a business owner, it's hard to be able to say, I've got this and this and this and this, and I don't have time for this. And so you're not putting the time in it. Invest the time. It's the same thing as investing on a service writer or a technician, an A-Tech. This is the one thing that is going to bring you the most money, and keep the consistency on the car counts. And that is the biggest thing with any shop, is consistency on car counts.
Well said. Well said.
Excellent.
So once again, thank you guys for joining us today on the show. And for all of our viewers, we'll be back on Friday, and we'll have Clark Sowers. He is a HR expert from Expert Effects that'll be on the show, and we'll be navigating what all the HR rules and stuff are coming up in the next year. So look forward to having everybody here on Friday. And once again, thank you guys for joining us today.
Thank you very much.